And oh, I just reminded somebody to record the presentation. That's what that was when I said you'll get the recording later. So, all right. So you are being recorded as that message just told you. Remember, guys, we are on Zoom. So we just want you to remember those Zoom etiquette rules that we've all become so familiar with over the pandemic, right? So make sure that you stay muted, but we do want your cameras to be on if at all possible. We understand that there might be some reason why you can't keep it on the whole time, right? We're working from home, there's all sorts of things going on, but to try to just make it as engaging and as close to real, like in person as possible, we would love to have your cameras on and be able to see all of your wonderful faces. If you have questions throughout the presentation, please submit them using the link in the chat. And then later on at the end of the presentation, we'll have somebody moderating that and asking as many questions as we have time to get to. All right, next slide. All right, so just an overview of Recovery Resource Council and the PRC. Recovery Resource Council is a behavioral health nonprofit that's been around for over 70 years. We serve over, the PRC serves 19 counties, but as an agency, we serve over 21 counties across North Texas. We touch really all at-risk populations across the spectrum. We have a variety of different programs and services. I believe in your registration packet that you received from Kay, we have our agency information flyer that gives a little bit of information about all of the different programs that we have here at Recovery Resource Council. Next slide. All right, that's just the mission of our organization as a whole, is to promote wellness and recovery from alcohol and substance use disorders and trauma. And we have an agency guarantee that we take very seriously and very, in everything we do, in every interaction we have, whether it's with one another, whether it's with the community, or whether it's with clients. We genuinely try to make sure that we are doing our best to follow our agency guarantee, which is to treat everyone that we come in contact with unconditional acceptance, respect, and positive regard. Next slide, please. All right. The Texas Prevention Resource Center, PRC3, as we lovingly call it. There are 11 PRCs throughout Texas, as you can see on this slide. Those are divided up by Health and Human Services Commission of Texas regions. So each HHSC region has a designated PRC, just one, and we are lucky enough at Recovery Resource Council to be the designated PRC for Region 3. So that means that we are responsible for servicing all the counties in our region, which, like I mentioned earlier, encompasses 19 counties. And that, oh, yep, you're good. Way to be intuitive. So that is our county map. Those are all of the 19 counties that we serve. So most of you, I would imagine, are somewhere within that region. Maybe we have a couple from outside the region, but I would imagine most of you probably fall somewhere within that map. That just gives you a little bit of a summary of all the different things that we do in the PRC. I won't read the slide to you because I know that's one of the most annoying things when I'm watching a presentation. So I'll let you guys read that. But also in that same registration packet, you received a PRC specific flyer. So it's titled, "What can the PRC3 do for you?" And it gives more details even than what's on this slide about all of the different services and resources that are available to you if you are in Region 3. And the thing I always like to highlight for anybody who may not be familiar with the PRC, or maybe you've never engaged with us for any resources or services, is that everything we have to offer agencies in our region is always free of cost. So whether it's a training, a presentation, any type of resource, we are available to you at no cost to just help you guys do what you do out in the communities better. That's truly what we're here to do, is just to serve you and give you the tools that you need to be the best at what you guys do as boots on the ground. We're like the backup singers. So, all right, next slide.
It's the gremlins. My clicker is not working. Okay, here we go.
All right. All right. So thank you so much again for all of you attending. That is the end of my part of the presentation. Kay is really the star of today's show. So I'm so glad you guys are all here. It says we have 46 people logged on, which is so wonderful. I'm so glad all of you could join us today. I hope that you find this presentation educational and enlightening. And again, I hope that if you've never interacted with the PRC before, I look forward to an opportunity to engage with all of you further and find ways that we can serve you and your organization and your community. So without further ado, I will hand it over to Kay to take the presentation from here. Thanks, guys.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining. So really quickly, we're going to do a Mentimeter poll because I know how much people love those. That was not sarcasm, I'm being serious. Okay. So, y'all, the gremlins got a hold of my computer and they just will not let go. Okay, here we go again, for real this time. Okay, so on your screen, you should see, when I hear the word data, I think, and then dash, along with a code that you can put in to answer the question, and then it'll populate and we'll get to see it in live time. So if everyone could go to menti.com, type in this code. Let me know if you can't see it and we can have someone drop it in the chat. Devin, if you could put that in the chat for me, that would be great. Sorry, I just put you on the spot. Thank you. So when people hear the word data, they think a lot of different things. Some of those are like, you know, positive associations. Some of them are kind of negative. There's a lot of data haters out here, not gonna lie. But yeah, so what do you think of when you think of the word data? Ooh, okay. Okay, quantitative, interesting. Shout out to you, to whoever did that. Facts, evidence, numbers. Okay. Oh, someone said qualitative. Yes. Information, statistical information. Okay, specific. Necessary. Yes. High five to you. I'm like trying to read the sideways ones and the, I should just wait until I'll send it. Greatly needed. Okay, I saw that one. Complicated. That's true. It can be complicated. Okay. We'll do a bit more and then we'll switch gears. Okay, so numbers is the one that seems to be the standalone star, and quantitative as well as necessary. So that's good, that's good. Okay, so we had about 30-ish people participate. You can still send it in. It just, it'll be included in the follow-up slides, not now. So really when we think about data, most people think either numbers. Nobody said money this time, which is my favorite answer because data equals money. Because if you can prove something is an issue, you can get money for it. Usually, not always, like in a perfect world, right? So when we talk about data, we really need to think about the fact that data is not any use on a shelf somewhere, like information you collect and stick on your shelf and say, look at the shiny RNA that I did. Data is actionable, right? So data is used to make decisions. For example, most of us live in Texas or have lived in Texas forever. So you know that the most vital piece of Texas data is the weather. And not just the weather in the beginning of the day when you are leaving the house, but throughout the day, because it will change 5 or 6 times depending on the day and depending on what city you live in even. So you check to see if you need to pack your rain boots and your snow boots, if you need to bring an umbrella, if you need sunglasses, you need to check all of that, right? But if you just check the weather and then like go about your day without considering the information you just got, you're gonna get wet, right? Or it'll be too hot. So that's what data really is. That's really the point of data, right? To use the information you get to affect change in a way. Even if it's just a minor change of like, I cannot wear these shoes because they're suede and it's gonna rain, which I did not do this morning. So I'm gonna start my presentation. So you guys let me know when you can see my screen. Oh, wait, it would help if I hit share, wouldn't it? Oh, silly K. Okay, it's okay that this is all happening at the beginning, so that's great. Okay, so everyone sees my, what, if I could just get like a verbal confirmation, because I can't see anyone's head nods if you're head nodding. Okay, I can see Becky's head now. Okay, thank you, Becky. Okay. So the RNA, which is the regional needs assessment, we call it RNA for short because that's a lot of letters to repeatedly say a lot. So the purpose of the RNA really is to collect information to affect change, right? So it's to collect information so we can make prevention decisions for substance use prevention with evidence, right? So the method is, Becky mentioned earlier that there are 11 PRCs throughout the state of Texas. And so all of us work together to collect the data that we all put into our individual RNAs. So there are 11 RNAs in the state of Texas, and we all work together to collect and clean up the data so we can tell all of our counties and in our region what the findings are for our specific area. But we also have a little bit of data regionally for other regions, just for comparisons and stuff like that. And so doing an RNA is like I like to say it's a year-round process because it is, but we officially usually like break ground in the spring and start collecting that data, cleaning it up. And the RNA is usually published by the end of July. This year and the year before, it was published in August because COVID. And so we worked throughout the year and put it together and published it. And it's on our website. And I did send a link to you guys to, if you want to go through the RNA. It's 247 pages, so super light read. You can probably get through it in an afternoon, I'm sure. So yeah, when you have a chance, need a light read, just crack it open. And if you aren't going to crack it open, don't worry, this presentation will do in a pinch. Okay, so in the RNA, we have about 58 different data sources. That's about 7 more than last year. We have one focus group that we did in Denton County, and then I have a few key informant interviews that I conducted over the past 2 years. No, okay, sorry. I'm gonna just go back to my mouse. Oh, reliable here. Okay, so this is the Region 3 map that Becky mentioned earlier. So I sent you guys this map in an email. And in the email, I suggested that you print it out. That way you have it for an activity we're gonna do. So throughout the presentation, we'll be going through most of the major findings from the RNA. I couldn't fit them all into 3 hours because there is a lot in there. But hopefully you have your nice shiny map in front of you. As we go through the presentation, whenever I mention your county or the counties that you serve as being high risk for something or having a high protective factor for something, I want you to indicate that on your map, like in your little county. I said for you to print out the whole map because if you service multiple counties, you might notice that Wise County had something for here and then Dallas had it for here. And so that way you can kind of visually see where some of the risk factors are stacking up, right? Or where there are a lot of built-in protective factors. So hopefully everyone got that map printed. Okay, so the first section of the RNA is the regional demographic section, right? Who lives here, right? So Region 3 overall is estimated to have about a 7.4% population increase. This is from 2017 to 2021. So that's about a 4-year time period. So you can see that it's more than Texas. So Texas is about 7%, but it's not the highest in the state, right? So it's kind of middle of the pack. So when you break it down for each county in Region 3, which are the 19 counties. So if you're looking at this on a small laptop screen, I apologize. It should still be easy, kind of okay to see. The top 3 are Denton, Collin, and Rockwall County, respectively. The purple line is the Region 3 overall, and then like that grayed out vertical line is Texas. This is also in the executive summary that I sent out to you. So it's a nice full page on there, so you can definitely go in and see that much more closely. This growth, again, is from 2017 and 2021. So if you can see all the way down at the bottom, you see Palo Pinto in the negative. So it's expected to have a 0.5% of a decrease in this same time period. And then Navarro County had virtually no change in this four-year period. So when we look at age breakdowns for Region 3, about 26.4% is under 18 and 12.7% is over 65. So this is important because we know that these two groups are high risk groups, right? So when we look at 65 and older, they may be at higher risk for prescription drug misuse, like accidental prescription drug misuse, right? Whether it's not being able to read the label correctly or forgetting whether they took it or not, things like that. And then for the 0 to 18 population, really COVID is a perfect example of this, right? So we know that as stressful and hectic as these last 2 years have been for adults, it's been way more than that for kids, right? For youth in general. So we as adults kind of have some autonomy about what happens to us around us, whether it's, deciding what rules to follow, et cetera, or living somewhere where we know we can affect change by voting for certain people, et cetera, right? If you're 15 or 16, you're kind of at the whim of whoever is in charge of you, whoever is like taking care of you, right? Whether that be your parents, whether that be the schools, whether that be after school programs you go to. So you don't get to have a lot of say in when things happen. So as adults, we know that we have to be good stewards of the things that we do, because what we do doesn't just affect us immediately, but it also, like, the kids really are the ones that bear the brunt of it in certain instances, right? And so when we keep in mind the population that we're serving, so Dallas, Johnson, and Ellis County actually have the highest rates of those who are under 18. And so these are fairly young counties. Well, young isn't like people who live there, not like Dallas County has been here forever. So that's not. Oh, and then at the bottom, you'll see that Hood, Fannin, and Somerville County have they have the population they have a higher population of those 65 and older than they do of those who are under 18, right? So they will need different services there, in theory, than like Dallas, Johnson, and Ellis County would. Okay, so we have race breakdown. So Region 3 has a higher rate than Texas for each race and ethnicity category, except for Hispanic. So I have the Texas rates under. So 45 for Region 3 compared to 40 for Texas, 40 for Hispanic for Texas compared to about 29 in Region 3. Black alone is 12 compared to 15.6, and then 7.2 to 5.3, 2.6 to 2.2. So as far as Region 3 is concerned, of all of the counties that we have, Tarrant County most closely mirrors Region 3's numbers. So it's like a couple of percent either higher or lower. And so it most closely mirrors Region 3's demographic overall. And it has done so for several years. So Dallas is the only county with a higher rate of multilingual individuals in Region 3 and Texas. So again, if you look at this bar chart, you'll see that the dark purple is Region 3 and that dark gray is Texas. So Dallas County has about 44% of the population who speak a language in addition to English. And then in Texas overall, it's about 36%, and in Region 3, it's about 31%. And you can see the distribution for the rest of the counties. The lowest amount is in Parker County at 9%. So now when we do limited English proficiency, which the definition of that is if someone indicated they spoke English less than very well, this is measured for the population 5 years and older. So it's not just for everyone, it's just 5 and older. In some other cases, sometimes it's 14, but for this specific data set, it's 5 years and older. So Dallas County has the highest rate of households with limited English proficiency, about 11%. So Region 3 overall is about 7%, and Texas is about 7.7%. Okay, so that's it for the demographics section. So what are some things that stood out to you? Okay, so we will go on to the next section. So the next section in the RNA is our risks and protective factors. So in the previous years, the RNA has been organized differently, but this year we organized it under the socio-ecological model. And so I have it here. I designed one just for y'all to be able to see it. So this moves from the macro level to the micro level, and so does the RNA. So it's organized under these 6 domains. And so the socio-ecological model talks about how we can affect change at each different level, but that for us to have the most sustainable change and impactful change, multiple levels need to be working together, because society is the biggest part, right? But it also affects the individual, and the individual does have the ability to affect societal change, right? And so it's not necessarily like outside in, it's like there's arrows going in both directions, if that makes sense. So this is the way that the RNA is organized, and this is the way I will do the levels for the risk and protective factors in the presentation. So the RNA also talks about the social determinants of health, which I know all of you have heard about a lot if you work in social services, right? So Healthy People 2030 defines it as the conditions of the environment where people are born, live, learn, work, play, worship, and age. They added a couple of ones in there. It used to be where you live, work, learn, and one other thing. But, or yeah, where you're born, live, and like work and learn or something like that. They added a couple other ones in there. So we know that these are the places that have an impact on your health and on your well-being and your quality of life. And this is also where we can see health disparities and inequities very clearly, right? When we use this model. So the first section is the societal domain. So in this section, we're going to have data from income, employment, and then some government assistance programs and homelessness. So I will say disclaimer, I will tell you what's in the sections per the RNA, but that's not necessarily what will be in the presentation. So just if you're like, well, she missed one, it's in the RNA, I promise. Okay. So first we have the income data, which this is a small multiple chart, and I love them. They're my favorites. You can show several things at once. Again, if you're looking on a small screen, I apologize. Again, this is in your executive summary as a full page. So in 2019, approximately 1 in 4 households in ERAF, Navarro, and Palo Pinto County had a median household income below $25,000, and that's per year. So if you're looking at the distribution, we'll see that 25,000 below 25,000 is the first column, and it goes all the way to those who make 200,000 plus dollars per year for the median household income. So the ones that are highlighted in like that lilac color are the top 3 in that category. So Palo Pinto, Navarro, and ERAF have 1 in 4 households that are under $25,000 a year, which is not a lot to live on, right? So most of the households in Region 3, though, did have between $50,000 and $100,000 for their income, for their median household income. So that's most where the distribution is. But some counties had higher rates in the below 50,000, and then some had higher rates in the over 100,000. Namely, Rockwall, Collin, and Denton County had the highest rates for the 200,000, 100,000 and up. So Cook County experienced the highest rate of increase for unemployment rates. So this is just from 2019 to 2020. So in 2019, their unemployment rate was 2.8, which was the second lowest rate. And then in 2020, just the following year, it skyrocketed to 7.1%. And we know that, most unemployment rates rose, right, because of COVID. A lot of people were laid off, people had to quit their jobs. And so we know that rates increased across the board, but in Region 3, Cook County had the highest level of increase. It went from being the second lowest to the third highest in just 1 year. You'll see also Dallas, Palo Pinto, and Tarrant County highlighted because they were over 7%. Most counties hovered around 6-ish%, but again, the year before they were about 3 in that 2 to 3 range, or 3 to 4 range, excuse me. So Navarro County has the highest rate of participation in the SNAP at 15.7%. So that was for 2020. So SNAP is the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. So it is a form of assistance. And for the past 5 years, Navarro County has had the highest rate for 5 years in a row. And so you'll see Region 3's rate is about 8.8%. And about half the counties have a higher rate than Region 3 and the other half have a lower rate. But Navarro County is significantly higher than Region 3's average. And then Texas overall was about 11.5%. So similarly with TANF, here we go. Similarly with TANF, Navarro County also had the highest rate in Region 3. So TANF is the Texas Temporary Assistance for Needy Families program. So if you see Region 3 is about 61.5, and that's per 100,000 population. And then you'll see that Navarro County is at 162.6. And the second closest is Kaufman at 103, which is slightly higher than Texas. And again, Navarro County has had the highest rate for the last 4 years in a row. Oh, I was gonna say 10th came before SNAP. Okay, that makes sense. Okay, now, so for the 2019-2020 school year, Dallas County had the highest rate of students qualifying for free or reduced lunch at nearly 79%. Navarro County is a very close second at 78.5%. Region 3's average overall was 59%. So this is only a measure of students who qualify for free or reduced lunch, not necessarily the kids who use it. Sometimes people are unaware of the benefits they have, or they just opt out of using it. So most counties saw an increase in this rate over the 4-year period that's indicated in the RNA. So from the 2016 to 2017 school year, all the way to 2019-2020 school year, most counties saw an increase. The only counties that didn't were 2 counties. So the next measure that I have is students experiencing homelessness. So I wanted to show you guys the definition really quick, and I highlighted the ones that pop out. So it's defined by TEA, and this is their exact definition. It's in the RNA. I'm not going to leave it up here for a long time. And so it's students who are without a fixed, regular, or adequate nighttime residence. So this example could include students who are in foster care, those who live in cars, parks, public places, trailer parks, and then or in a public or private place not designated for sleeping. This also includes migratory children. So for the 2020 to 2021 school year, Grayson, Wise, and Dallas counties had the highest rates of students who are experiencing homelessness. The Region 3 average was 10.4. This is per 1,000 students. And then the lowest rate was Rockwall at 0.6. So for the years previous to this, so 2019 and 2020, Palo Pinto County actually had the highest rate at 36.5. But it dropped significantly from 2019 and 2020 to 2020 to 2021. So I want you guys to think about why that may have been, right? And then for the 4 years previous to that as well, Palo Pinto County had a significantly higher rate than the other counties. But for the 2020 to 2021 school year, this was not the case. Okay, so in this societal domain section, what stood out to you? So community domain, it focuses on, in this section, we're going to talk about adult education levels. So, high school education, college education. We're going to talk about crime data, youth and adult. And then we're going to talk about healthcare a little bit. And there's going to be, in the RNA, you'll find more data on that. So the first, in my back-to-back chart, I'm going to talk about all the charts as we come to them because I'm really excited about them. You don't have to be as excited about them. It would help though. But yeah, so the back-to-back charts show on one side the bachelor's degree or higher, and then the other side is those who do not have a high school diploma. So the top 3 in each category are indicated. So almost 35% of people in Region 3 have a bachelor's degree or higher, and that's as of 2019. This rate is only calculated for those who are 25 years and older. So it wouldn't make sense to calculate it for like 18-year-olds because they're probably in college. Or they took a year off before they went to college, or maybe they don't decide to go to college, but it's not an accurate measure for that demographic. So 25 and up is where we took the snapshot. And then for those without a high school diploma, the highest rate was found in Navarro County at nearly 22%, followed by Dallas at 20.7, and then Palo Pinto at 15.8. So Dallas was interesting because it ranked high for those with a bachelor's degree at almost 32%. So it's top 5. And then it also ranks top 3, though, for those without a high school diploma. So it kind of has a duality within one county, right? And those with the highest level of those with the bachelor's degree was found in Collin, Denton, and Rockwall County. If you think back to the income data, they also were the top 3 that had the over $100,000 a year. Although correlation is not causation, but in this case, it might be. So this is a comet plot, and it's exactly what you think it is. So it shows increase and decrease over time. So each county has its own lane to comet in. So Navarro County saw the highest rate of increase for total referrals to juvenile justice. And so this is from 2017 to 2019. So if you see Navarro County has like the longest purple tail on its comet. Somerville and Cook County also had pretty high rates of increase in those 2 years. And then Hood County saw the highest rate of decrease. It was still the highest in Region 3 for 2019, but it did decrease the most over the 2-year period, the 3-year period, excuse me. And so total referrals takes in all the offenses, so felony, misdemeanor, probation, et cetera, under the juvenile justice umbrella. So now we're going to break it down per type. This is calculated per population 10 to 17 years old. So it's not over the whole population. It's just for their juvenile population, their youth population within those counties. So Somerville County saw the highest rate of increase. Oh, I skipped one. There we go. Navarro County saw the highest rate of increase for felony offenses in the juvenile justice system. So again, this is from 2017 and 2019. If you look down at Navarro County, you'll see like it has the longest purple line. Grayson County also had a pretty high level of increase. Hood and Palo Pinto County saw high levels of decrease in their rates of felony offenses. So felony offenses include violent felonies and then also other felonies. So that would include like homicide, robbery, assault. It also includes things like theft, burglary, some drug offenses that are considered felonies. Somerville County had the highest rate of increase for misdemeanor A and B offenses. So if you look down, you'll see it has the longest line. Navarro and Hunt County, as well as Cook County, also had high levels of increase. But Somerville County actually increased nearly like by 6 times its amount. It went from like 1.2 to 6.3 or something like that. And so it increased quite a bit. Now we know Somerville County is a small county, and that's why we calculate rate data versus just showing you raw numbers, because that significant amount can only be seen when we do rate data, right? And you'll see that Erath and Rockwall County, as well as Hood County, again saw a decrease. So Hood County saw the highest rate of decrease for violations of probation in the juvenile justice system. Again, it's still the highest rate by far compared to the other counties in Region 3 for this time for 2019, but it did decrease the most. Fannin and Hunt County as well decreased, and then you'll see that Johnson County and Cook County increased quite a bit. Sometimes my clicker works, sometimes it doesn't. Okay, Fannin County saw the highest rate of decrease for conduct in need of supervision. So you'll see, like, I didn't even have to tell you that, you saw it and you saw that long line, right? Navarro County also had a high rate of decrease. Palo Pinto County had the highest rate of increase. So conduct in need of supervision includes status offenses and then other types of offenses. So this is something that wouldn't be a crime if they were an adult. So for example, truancy, runaway, getting expelled from alternative education. These are only fines if you're a minor, right? And then this also includes, this also can include drug offenses as well that are not in the, or being a crisis, or if it's an unidentified, unspecified situation, it goes under this other CINS law. I don't know why I'm gonna just put it over here. Okay, so Navarro and Somerville County saw the highest rates of increase for liquor law violation arrests. So this is 2018 and 2020. So they're the only two that saw an increase over this 3-year period. All the other counties, again, it's 2020, right? We're assuming that people are at home, people are, not outside, as we like to say, like, but in 2020, we expected a lot of rates to fall. So I'm talking about Navarro and Somerville County. And so they're the only 2 counties that saw an increase in liquor law violations over this 2-year period. So for drunkenness, the only county that saw an increase from 2018 and 2020 was Fannin County. Everyone else saw a decrease. Somerville had the highest level of decrease. It went from 253 to 0 in those 3 years. And then Dallas County was still the highest, but it did decrease significantly over that 3-year period. So Erath, Ellis, and Denton counties saw the highest rate of increase for DUI alcohol arrests. So this is specifically for alcohol, not for any other type of under the influence. And this is from 2019 and 2020. So if you look in the RNA, it has 2018, 2019, and 2020. If you look from 2018 to 2020, it looks like it kind of stayed the same or like kind of leveled out. But you'll see from 2018 to 2019, most counties saw a decrease. And then a lot of counties from 2019 to 2020 continued to decrease, but these 3 counties went up from 19 to 20. And again, we talked about how 2020 is COVID year and where we expected rates to fall because people were inside, not outside. Okay, so Cook County saw the highest rate of increase for drug narcotic violation arrests by far. So it went from, and this is for 2018 and 2020. So it went from 0 in 2018 to 846 per 100,000 population in 2020. And that's just over a 3-year period, right? We saw that other counties had a high increase as well. So Hood and Somerville County also saw large increases. Somerville also went from 0 to 334. And then Rockwall County had the largest decrease. It started off as the #1 rate in 2018 and ended up being #4. So it did have the highest level of decrease, but not, it was not among the lowest rates. And then for drug equipment violations, Cook County saw the highest rate of increase also, again, went from 0 to 511. Dallas also saw a high increase from 5 to 124. And then you'll see that Palo Pinto and Rockwall County had a high level of decrease. So Cook County, again, saw the highest rate of increase for murder cases in 2018 and 2020. Again, it went from 0 to about 10 per 100,000. That's really high for 2 years, especially 2020 being a year that most people were, like at home or inside. Dallas County and Grayson and Tarrant County, also had high increases as well as Palo Pinto County. And then you'll see that Somerville actually decreased to 0 and Navarro cut its rate in half. So Somerville County had the highest rate of increase for rape cases. So you'll see at the bottom there, it went from about 11 to 110 or 111 in the 2-year period. So it went from the lowest rate in 2018 to the highest rate in 2020. And then Erath and Palo Pinto County also saw an increase. Hunt and Rockwall counties saw the highest rate of increase for robbery cases. So there were not a lot of increase or decreases. Most rates stayed the same for the 2-year period in most counties, but you'll see that like Hunt and Rockwall had a little bit of a tail, and then Dallas, Hood, and Palo Pinto had a tail decreasing. So Dallas did have a good amount of decrease, but it was still significantly higher overall, the other counties. And this is for cases overall filed, not for cases cleared, like solved mysteries, like solved. Dallas and Tarrant counties saw the highest rate of increase for aggravated assault cases. And you'll see that Fannin, Grayson, and Hunt County also had an increase. Hunt County had the highest rate for 2020. Somerville County saw the highest rate of increase for burglary cases. So you'll see that towards the bottom. And then you'll see that Palo Pinto also saw a large increase. Fannin County had the highest level of decrease, along with Erath County as well. So Cook County had the highest rate of increase for larceny cases. So larceny is defined as like pickpocketing, shoplifting, things like that. And these definitions are from Texas DPS. And Palo Pinto and Wise saw an increase as well. And you'll see that Navarro and Erath County saw large decreases. Cook County also saw the highest rate of increase for motor vehicle thefts in this time period. 15 counties saw an increase in the 2-year period. Again, in 2020, we thought a lot of people were like at home, not outside, but some of the data shows that some of the rates still increased or were higher than they were increased, not just in 2018 and 2020, but also sometimes significantly so from 19 to 20. So this next chart is called a bump chart, and it shows rank over time. So this is not like, it wasn't a rate of 1, it was number 1. So Palo Pinto County went from having the 3rd highest rate in 2016 to 2020 to having the highest rate in 2020. And you'll see that Grayson County went from number 6 to number 4, and the other top 10 counties are listed there. So this is a measure for drug charges, for incarceration rates for drug-related charges. All of these counties in the top 10 are significantly higher than Region 3 and Texas's average, sometimes twice or 3 times the rate of Texas or Region 3 and Region 3, excuse me. The second bump chart also shows incarceration rates, but for DWI charges specifically. Somerville County went from having the 7th highest rate in 2016 to being number 1 in 2017, and then it comes back down to 2020, right? So over time, it came back down to the same rate it started at in the top 10, but the following year, from 16 to 17, it went up to 1. You'll see Palo Pinto started at 5 and ended up being number 2. Grayson also increased after decreasing for a little bit. And then Johnson County was not on the map in 2018, but went up to number 6 in 2020. So in this back-to-back chart, we see health insurance rates, those who are who do not have health insurance. So the first column is children who are 0 to 18 years old who do not have health insurance. And the second column is adults, 1964. So the ones who are indicated are the top 3 in each category. So Erath County actually was top 3 for both categories, for both children who were 0 to 18 and for adults who were 19 to 64 of being uninsured. So 15 counties in Region 3 had a higher rate than Texas of children who were uninsured, and 8 counties had a higher rate than Texas of adults who did not have insurance. In 2019, 14 counties in Region 3 had a higher ratio than Texas of their population to mental health providers within their county. So the way you read this chart is if everyone in that county needed services, each mental health provider would need to take on this many clients. And so that speaks to the level of access people have to mental health providers. So in Palo Pinto County, one mental health provider, one therapist would have to see 4,800 clients for everyone, if everyone needed to get services. And we see that the county that has the highest number is Dallas County. There are a lot more, and Dallas is the most populated, so that means that there's actually a lot more mental health providers in Dallas than other counties. Texas's average is 880 per one mental health provider. And so most counties actually, 15 counties had a higher rate than Texas. 14, sorry, Collins the same. In 2020, 11 counties had a higher rate of alcohol permits than Region 3 overall. So again, you'll see Region 3 is that dark purple line. So alcohol, this is permit per population, so per 100,000 population. Palo Pinto's rate was nearly 2.5 times the rate of Texas and Region 3, so at 481 per population, per 100,000 population, excuse me. And then when we talk about tobacco permits, 15 counties had a higher rate than Region 3 overall. And again, Palo Pinto was the top for both alcohol and for, Palo Pinto and Cook were the top for alcohol and for tobacco permits. Okay, so what stood out to you in this section? Okay, so now we're gonna move on to the school domain. So in this domain, we talk about testing rates, graduation and dropout rates. And in the RNA, you'll find disciplinary rates as well. I didn't include that here. Okay. So Grayson County had the largest gap between third grade students who took the Math Star in Spanish compared to those in English, who took it in English. So this is for students who scored below their grade level. So the STAR exam you can take in either English or in Spanish, and there has to be, and that's only for up to third grade. Yeah, up to third grade, I'm sorry. No, 8th grade, I'm sorry. It's only for, yeah, up to 8th grade. So the measure is of the students who took the math exam in Spanish compared to those who took it in English. This is a percentage of students who did not meet the standard, right? They did not meet the requirement to pass that test. So in Grayson County, you can see it's about 20% for those who took it in English who did not meet the grade level meet the score for their grade level, compared to 60% for those who took it in Spanish. For this graph, there's only 7 counties represented here. 8 counties had 0% of students who didn't meet their requirement who took it in Spanish. So that means all of them pass. And then for 4 counties, they didn't have any students take the STAR exam in Spanish. Now, on the flip side, we have those who took the reading exam in either Spanish or English. This is a measure, again, for those who did not meet the grade level, who scored below their grade level, I'm sorry. So Hunt County had the largest gap here between those who took it in English and Spanish, again, about 60% and about 30%. So math is kind of a universal language, right? So math is in every country, everyone takes math. Reading differs depending on where you live, right? And so this is why we can see more counties have a representation of those who may have not met the mark who took it in Spanish, because there is that added language barrier, right? So 2 counties had 0% versus 8 counties for math, and then only 2 counties didn't have students take the Spanish STAR. So for graduation rates from the TEA, we only got the data at the regional level. We did not get it at the county level. So this is graduation rates for 2019, for the 2019 cohort. So Region 3 had a high school rate, graduation rate about 89%. So that's the second lowest in Texas. Texas is about 90%. The highest is Region 2 at 95%. So that's like that Abilene, Texas area. So this data is based on 4-year rates. So students who started the 2015-2016 school year as freshmen who graduated by 2019. So they graduated in their allotted 4 years. This is what the measure includes. So this doesn't include students who moved to another school or continued their schooling somewhere else, or students who passed away. So similarly for dropout rates, it's the same type of data, right? For the 4 years, for their 4-year allotted group. So if they dropped out in these 4 years, this is what's represented here. So Region 3 had a dropout rate of 6%. So it's in the top 5 out of 11. So it's in the middle of the pack. And then Texas is about 2%. So everyone had a higher rate than Texas overall for graduation rates, or dropout rates, I'm sorry. So we're gonna skip this out to you for the school domain, because it's not a lot of data in this domain, which is another indicator in itself, right? That would be called a data gap. So if something stood out to you, go ahead and drop it in the chat or jot it down for when we get through the family domain. So in the family domain, this is where we talked about data for family violence, victims of child maltreatment, so that's through CPS, foster care placement, and then adult depression rates and things like that. So for the first data set, so we see that Navarro County had the highest rate of family violence incidents, I'm sorry, I kept adding extra letters and I couldn't stop, in 2020. So 10 counties actually have a higher rate than Region 3 overall. So you'll see that Navarro County is at about 19, and this is per 1,000 population. So that's about 2%. And then you'll see that Region 3 is about 4.7 per 1,000. And you see Texas is higher than Region 3's average overall. And Navarro and Cook counties have been the top 2 for the last 3 years. That's shown in the RNA. So 2018 through 2020, they've had the top 2 rates for family violence incidents. So for the rate of confirmed child victims of maltreatment, in 2020, Palo Pinto had the highest rate at 32.5. Again, this is per 1,000 children. So this is not per 1,000 overall population, it's per 1,000 children. So specifically for the youth population. And we'll see that Region 3's rate is about 9.9. It's like the purple lollipop in the middle. And you'll see that Palo Pinto and Cook County, again, had the top 2 rates for the 3 years in a row shown. So Palo Pinto County also had the highest rate of children who are under 18 in the foster care system for 2020. This is per 1,000 children who are age 0 to 18 specifically. And then the rate is 166 per 1,000. So that's about 16% compared to Fannin County at almost 10%, which is the second highest. And so again, Palo Pinto and Cook County have been in the top 3 rates for the last 3 years shown. So for all 3, like so for family violence, for confirmed victims of maltreatment, and then for this under 18 in the foster care system. So for adult depression rates, these are Texas rates overall. We don't have these rates per region. This comes from the BRFSS, which I call leveling Burfess, which sounds like breakfast when you say it really fast. Behavioral Risk Factor Surveillance System. It's through CDC. I was trying to remember the acronym. So for each of the 5 years shown, females had a higher rate of depression than males. So when you look at 2015 compared to 2019, so you'll see it starts out at 19.9%. Everyone's depression rates dropped in 2016, or everyone who took the survey. And then it started to go up again. Texas rates and female rates did increase, but male rates stayed the same over time. So they went from 12.1%, they went down, they came back up to 12.1% in 2019. And this is over a 5-year period. So now we're going to switch gears to the Texas School Survey, which I know you all love because it gives us it gives us a lot of data when we're talking about youth use and their perceptions and things like that. So students were asked, how do your parents feel about kids your age using, drug X? So about 1 in 4 12th grade students said neither or did not know. So their parents neither approved or disapproved about kids their age using alcohol, or they didn't know, right? And so I could just tell you the answer, but why do y'all think that's an important indicator to know, whether it's neither or do not know? Who has some theories? Before I tell y'all my theory.
We want to hear your theory.
No, guys. Okay. All right, if you insist. So do not know is an important indicator because that means they're not having that conversation. They're in 12th grade. They're about to go off into the into the world, right? Go off into the world. And then neither means that they either are getting mixed messaging and again, do not know could also indicate this, right? That they're either getting mixed messaging from their parents or their parents have said, I have no preference either way, make your own decisions. Or they just don't have those conversations, right, about substances. And we know that parents are like the #1 barrier, not barrier, they're like a huge protective factor in a child's life from all sorts of things. And that definitely includes substance use and mental health, right? Mental health issues. And so neither means that they don't have an opinion one way or the other, which does not discourage them from using substances. Or do not know, again, could mean they're getting mixed messaging, and then again, does not discourage them from using substances. So this is alcohol specifically. The average for all grades is 16.5%. And then this is regional data, I'm sorry. So region 3 and 4 got combined because 2020 was pandemic year. And so schools all closed in March. The Texas School Survey goes till May. So anyway.
Well, I do have an opinion about this. So
after I gave you my whole theory, now you have an opinion.
I know. And Savannah had typed in on the chat and said lack of conversation. I think by the time this do not know is very telling, like you said, because I think that parents are saying no. Let's suppose that conversations are taking place of some sort, where parents are saying no. And by the time a kid reaches their senior year of high school, all of a sudden they don't hear that anymore. So they think, oh, well, I don't know how they feel, because it just seems like the parents are starting to think, well, you're going to college anyway, and I was drinking at your age. And they may not communicate that, but I think that might be part of that do not know.
There's an unspoken like releasing of those boundaries. You're saying that's your theory?
Yes, that's a great summation of what I meant. Yes, thank you.
Okay. I'm a wordsmith a little bit, so.
You are good.
Don't hype me up, June. I get a big head. Won't be able to walk out of here. Okay, so the next one we're going to talk about is tobacco. So about 11% of 7th graders said that, again, answered neither or do not know when asked how their parents feel about kids their age using tobacco. This data is 2020, by the way, sorry. So the highest rate is 12th graders, and usually the highest rates for things are usually 12th and 11th graders. When we look at, the older they get, the more they get exposed to things. But the second highest rate is 7th grade. So 7th graders are what, 12, 13, or 11, 12, I forget. So 11%. So that's about 1 in 10, 1 in 9-ish, something like that. So that's a lot of students that don't know. And tobacco was the one that, a lot of people in prevention thought like, well, we solved this one, right? Like everyone knows not to do that. And then they came out with these fancy, shiny vape things, and like we have to write a whole new playbook, right? So we talk about why, again, neither and do not know are both indicators, is that these are conversations they're not either not having, or again, they're getting mixed messaging, or to June's theory, they may have heard something about specific types of tobacco, but not other types. So in the Texas School Survey, when they ask them questions, they usually break down each specific drug, like all the different names it could be called. So they don't just say like tobacco, they say like smokeless tobacco, vaping products, cigarettes, and then all the other names that you could associate with it. And the Texas School Survey is a public, you can see the survey publicly facing if you go to their website, which I will include in the follow-up. So about 14% of 10th graders answered do not know or neither when they were asked how their parents feel about kids their age using marijuana. Again, so 12th graders were about 19%. The second highest rate was 10th graders at 14%. Again, concern is they're getting mixed messaging or they're not having any conversations about this. So in the school domain and the family domain, what are some things that stood out to you? So the peer domain, again, is Texas School Survey data. So peer domain is about intrapersonal connections. So students were asked about how many of their friends consume, drug X. So about 17% of 11th graders reported that the majority of their friends consume alcohol. Again, this is 2020 data for regions 3 and 4. So majority is defined as if they answered most or all. So they were able to say none, some, most, or all. And that was their, so it was like the 4. So I just combined most and all. And so when you combine those rates, you have about 17%. And that's higher than, the other grades, but it's also higher than 12th graders, which, there's the assumption that seniors, right, with prom and all the other things, that they would have the highest rate, right? And kind of alarmingly so, for all of the drug categories, 11th graders had the highest rate for each drug category of the majority of their friends using a substance, with the exception of one. And I'll let you speculate until we get to that slide. So about 7% of 11th graders reported that the majority of their friends use tobacco. So tobacco use rates are, lower than, the other drugs, but they are still getting higher than they used to be, right? The Texas School Survey is conducted every 2 years. In 2018 and 2016, 2018 was a little higher than 2016, but in 2016, the other years, there was a downward trend, except for tobacco in 2018. So prevention works. That's the summary. 10th grade is about 5% saying the majority of their friends use tobacco. So for marijuana, we have about 14% of 11th graders reporting that their majority of their friends use marijuana. This is again for region 3 and 4, and for most or all of their friends. For 12th grade, it's about 11%. And then for 10th grade, it's about 10%. Oh, this is the one I was talking about. So for, oh no, it's not. Okay, so when they were asked about access to these substances, so alcohol, tobacco, and marijuana, those are the ones they're asked about. So 52% of 10th graders reported that it was easy to access alcohol. And this could be, they either answered somewhat easy or very easy to access alcohol. So and 10th grade and 11th graders have the same rate, about 52%. And then you have 12th graders, about 47%. And then for tobacco, about 36% of 11th graders reported that it was easy to access tobacco. Again, somewhat or very easy. About 35% for 12th grade and then 33% for 10th graders. Almost 40% of 11th graders said it was easy to access marijuana, a completely illegal substance in the state of Texas. I always add that in the end of whenever I talk about marijuana. So 40% of 11th graders, 39%, so basically 40% of 12th graders. And then for 10th graders, it's 36% who said it's very easy to access. And then if you look at 9th graders, you'll see that 23% of them said it was very easy to access marijuana. That's about 1 in 5. It's a little less than one, a little more than 1 in 5. Okay, so we're going to go through individual domain and then we'll talk about what stood out to you. So in the individual domain, we talk about youth mental health data, and that data is Texas rates, not regional rates, but it's still a good indicator to have. We talk about their attitudes towards substance use, so that includes their perception of harm. And then in the RNA, you'll find some other indicators in there as well. So 43% of 12th graders reported that they felt sad or hopeless, and this was in 2019. So the question was, felt sad or hopeless almost every day for 2 or more weeks in a row, so much so that they stopped doing the usual activities, and that was in the 12 months before the survey. So this was the highest of all grades in 2019, but if you look at 2013, you'll see that 12th graders were all the way down here at the bottom at 26.1%. So they went from having the lowest rate to the highest rate in 6 years. But you'll see that overall, all grade levels increased the rate of depression, self-reported. So nearly 49% of female students reported that they felt sad or hopeless. So again, that went up from 36 in 2013. For male students, it went from 20 to 28.3, and then Texas overall also increased. So the next indicator is for the students who reported that they attempted suicide. So that's nearly 12% of 10th graders reported that they attempted suicide in 2019. If you see, so you'll look at this chart and you'll see that 12th graders went from 2% to 5% from 13 to 17, and then from 17 to 19, it went back down to 2%. And then you'll see the other rates also increase and then decrease back down. But for 11th grade, it stayed, at 4%. 10th grade, not 10th grade, I'm sorry. Oh, did I click a button? It's the gremlins, y'all. It's the gremlins. Here we go. Thank you. Okay, so for 10th grade, you'll see that it went, it stayed at 12% for all 6 years. The rate did not go down at all, actually. It stayed in that about 12%. 9th graders went down, 11th grade went up and then came back down to 10%, still higher than 2013, but lower than 17. And then again, for 12th graders, it went up and then down as well. But 10th graders stayed at the same 12% of them who said they attempted suicide. So of those who reported that they did attempt suicide, 5% of 12th graders reported that they had an attempt that required medical attention from a doctor or a nurse or some sort of medical practitioner. And that was 2017. So again, you'll see that it went from 2% all the way up to about 5% and then back down to 2%. It's the gremlins, y'all. And this data comes from the YRBS, so the Youth Risk Behavioral Survey. I think behavior survey. And that's also through the CDC. So the rate of female students who reported they had a suicide attempt that required medical attention went up over the past 6 years. You'll see it went from 3.6 to about 4%. For male, it went up in 2017 and then came back down to lower than it started in 2013. And then Texas rates also went up and came back down. So by 2016, suicide rates for those age 15 to 24 was higher than the all ages average. This is per 100,000 population. And again, this is for Texas rates overall. So if you look, you'll see that in 2014, all ages were higher than just for that specific age group. And then there's a crossover from 15 to 16, and it stays higher through 2018, which is the most recent year we have. And in 2017, there was actually like a spike from 13.4 to 15.2. So the rate of suicides in adolescent males was significantly higher than females and the Texas rate overall in 2018. So the rate of attempts that required medical attention, feeling sad and hopeless, those rates were all lower than female. When we look at the rate of actual suicides for adolescents, the rates in males are way higher, significantly higher than females and the Texas rate. And this is true for all the years shown, even in between the graph from 14 all the way to 18. The rates are rising. So almost 19% of both 10th graders and 11th graders answered that alcohol was not very or not at all dangerous for kids their age to use. So they were asked, how dangerous do you think it was? All the way from very dangerous to somewhat dangerous, not very dangerous, not at all dangerous, or do not know. That was also an option for them to say that they really actually don't know. Which also, again, we talk about how do not know is still an indicator because that means there's a lack of education somewhere. This is again 2020 data and it's for regions 3 and 4. 11% of 11th graders said not very or not at all when asked how dangerous it was for kids their age to use tobacco. And that percent is about 9% for 10th graders. The 9th graders and the 12th graders have the same rate. So they were asked specifically about vaping products. So 18%, so that's higher. So 18, and it's higher in all the categories, not just for, I should have put them side by side, sorry. So 18% of 11th graders answered not very or not at all when they were asked how dangerous it is for kids their age to use vaping products in 2020. So again, to Angel's point earlier about how a lot of them don't equate, a lot of people do not equate, especially youth, that vaping products to a cigarette or other tobacco, like it's tobacco like all the other tobacco is, it just comes in different forms. And so the perception of harm is different for vaping and tobacco, despite the fact that they're the same, umbrella product, right? So when they were asked about marijuana, about 30% of 10th graders said not very or not at all dangerous when they were asked about kids their age specifically. So they weren't asked in theory, how dangerous do you think this is? They were asked kids your age. So for 10th graders, how do you think it is how dangerous do you think it is for 10th graders to use marijuana? And their answer for almost 30% of them, which is about 1 in 3-ish, said not very or not at all dangerous. And we know that low perception of harm is a risk factor because if you don't think something is dangerous or a problem, you're you're more likely to engage, right? So about 7% of 9th graders answered not very or not at all when they were asked how dangerous it is for kids their age to use prescription drugs not prescribed to them. So when talking about prescription drug misuse, they were asked specifically about the ones that weren't prescribed to them, not just is medicine bad for you, right? Because the way you word a question will determine the answer you get, right? So that rate is higher than all the other age groups. And the second highest rate was 8th graders at 5.8%. Okay, so what stood out to you in the peer session, the peer domain and the individual domain? So now we're going to talk about consumption patterns. So this section actually has 2 parts. So we have consumption patterns and then public health / safety consequences. And that's the way it's formatted this year in the RNA. So this includes self-reported consumption through TX's school survey. And then in the RNA, you'll find adult consumption patterns through the BRFS, the BRFSS. That's funny because it said it as breakfast. Okay, moving on. I don't know why I found that so funny. Hopefully you did too. Okay, so consumption patterns. So from Texas School Survey, students were asked about their consumption patterns for the six drug categories. So about 41% of 8th grade students reported using alcohol at least once in their lifetime. It's a lifetime use, again, is just once in their life prior to the survey. This is, again, 2020 data for region 3 and 4. So you'll see that 50% was 12th grade, so that's the highest rate, but 41% is still pretty high. That's about 2 out of 5 8th graders said that they've had alcohol before at least once. And so when we talk about current use for alcohol, so current use is in the last 30 days since, like before this survey, have you consumed certain, whatever the drug topic is. So about 23% of 10th graders reported currently using alcohol. So again, 23%, that's about 1 in 5. The highest rate, again, is 30% for 12th graders, but 10th and 11th graders are not that far. The difference is not that much, right? For current use of alcohol. So then we talk about tobacco use. So for lifetime tobacco use, electronic vapor products were the most reported type of lifetime tobacco use. So the first graph shows how many have used at least once in their lifetime. So you'll see that 35% for 12th grade, followed by 11th grade, then 10th grade, and then 8th grade. 8th grade is a little higher than the all grades average. And then you'll see that those who have used tobacco via electronic vapor products, so that 33 is part of the 35. So that's the highest, those are the highest types of tobacco that was used for both lifetime tobacco use and for current tobacco use. So the most popular type is electronic vapor products. And so the way they asked it is that they said, like, vaping, vape pens, e-cigarettes, e-liquid, all those things. That's how they broke it down. So again, it was very thorough the way they asked the question. They didn't just say, like, do you use electronic vapor products? Because that's very technical. So the first graph, again, is overall tobacco use. And then the second one is the specific one for vapor products. So for marijuana lifetime use, about 1 in 4 11th grade students reported using marijuana at least once in their lifetime. And this is, again, 2020 data. So 25% is about 1 in 4. Again, for 12th grade, it's about 30%. So for current use, which is 30-day use prior to the survey, about 15% of 11th graders reported currently using marijuana. So earlier I talked about how current use rates were highest among 11th graders for most drug categories. So for this drug category, for prescription drugs misuse, which the way they worded it was prescription drugs not prescribed to you or only for the experience or feeling that it caused. So basically, like long jargon, misuse, but misuse is not common knowledge to non-prevention folks, right? So about 1 in 5 8th graders reported that they had misused prescription drugs at least once in their lifetime. So about 21%. That's higher than all the other age groups. The second highest was 9th graders at 16%. And then again, for current use, it was about 8% of 8th graders and about 7% of 9th graders who reported that they had currently misused prescription drugs. Okay. So we're going to do a really quick what stood out to you, because so the next section is the public health and safety consequences. So in this section, like I talked about, we talk about health consequences, and then we also talk about text dot data, so crash rates, things like that. So first up, we have another bump chart. So Palo Pinto County went from having the 6th highest rate of lung cancer deaths to the 2nd highest rate in just 3 years, right? And so I highlighted some other counties here. So this is the top 10 that were out of 19, right? So they were the top half. So Fannin County was number 1, and then it went down to number 8, and then it went back up to number 1 in the 3 years. Hunt County was not on the map in 2018, and then it skyrocketed to number 3. Cook County went up to 1 and back down to 6. And then we have Palo Pinto County, which just kind of steadily went up. And so one thing you might think about with rank data is say like, okay, well, this shows that even if there is a decrease in the actual rate over time, because that sometimes is the case, if a county rises through the ranks kind of quickly, it shows that it's not decreasing, its rate is not decreasing at the same like speed or rate that the other counties are, if that makes sense. So if county A, B, and C all drop in their amount, but county B doesn't drop as fast as county A and C, it'll still be number 1, or maybe it'll go up to number 1 instead of being number 3 where it was before. So if you look at the rates, the actual rates in the RNA, sometimes they do have a decrease, but if it's not decreasing as quickly as the other ones, it ends up being the top 3 rates in the region. So for 2020, the lung cancer death rates are provisional. So we got these rates in 2021, but again, after cleaning, scrubbing, verifying, sometimes the data still has, like especially for the last quarter of the year, so September through December, some of that data is missing for Q4 of that year. So this is the rate before we get the final numbers. So the numbers can only go up, right? And the rate may change, but maybe it doesn't. So Somerville County had the 6th highest rate of DUI crashes in 2020. This is for alcohol specifically. In 2018, it was number 15 of rank, right? So again, out of 19 counties, it was number 15. And then by 2020, which is only 2 years later, right? It's number 6. You see Grayson County went up as well. Cook County actually dropped from 4 to 8. And then Navarro County went up to number 1. Again, 2020, we all thought was the year that, again, most people would be at home. These rates would mostly decrease. Some of the rates did increase. Not to confuse you with this is a bump chart just showing rank, not necessarily increase or decrease, but it shows where they ended up at the end of that year, right? Like out of 19, what number were they? So DUI injuries, Hunt County went from having the 5th highest rate of crashes to the highest in 3 years. So you'll see that for 2018 and 2019, they were number 5. And then by 2020, they were up to number 1. And then you'll also see Grayson County went from 2 to 10, back up to 3. Kaufman County went up as well, and so did Somerville, went from 9 to number 3. Ellis County went from having the 10th highest rate of DUI crashes, fatalities, to the 2nd highest rate in a 3-year period. So it was number 14 in 2019. It went from 10 to 14, and then it went up to number 2. That's why you don't see like a direct line there. And then you'll see Hunt County went up to number 1 and then to number 3. Palo Pinto County went off the map in 2019 and came back to number 1 in 2020. And some other ones as well. Cook County dropped from 3 to 9. And that kind of correlates because we see that Cook County also dropped the number of crashes from 2018 and 2019. So for driver-related fatalities, specifically, Wise County had the 2nd highest rate in 2020. In 2018, it wasn't in the top 10, it was number 13, and then it came to number 6, and then went to number 2, and just steadily increased. You'll see that Hunt County, again, went to 1 and then back down to 3, just like it did with related fatalities, not just driver-specific ones. Palo Pinto County went down and then back up again. And then Kaufman County went up and then slightly down. So the overdose death rates, this is a combination for both alcohol and drugs, and this is from CDC, from their CDC Wonder data. So 8 counties had higher rates of overdose deaths than Texas did overall. There is no region 3 measure for this measure. Sometimes there's a county measure and a state measure and a regional measure, and sometimes there's just 1 or 2 out of 3 combinations. So CDC is one of those examples. So the highest rate was in Palo Pinto County, at about 24, and this is per 100,000 population. This is crude rate specifically, not age adjusted. In the RNA, there's a lengthy explanation about the difference between age adjusted and crude rates. So crude rates is the number of incidences divided by, total number of population and then multiply by your multiplier. Age adjusted rate takes in age as a factor. And so it would account for that. So for example, there'd be a higher incidence of, heart disease or heart attack rates in a place that had a higher population of people who are older, right? So it accounts for that in the data, whereas crude rates don't. So when we have a breakdown, so 5 counties had higher rates of alcohol-related overdose deaths in Texas, and this is for 1999 to 2019, so it is cumulative data over the 20-year period. So Somerville County is not indicated on here because it had suppressed data. So if your denominator, your numerator is less than 20, then it'll show it as suppressed data. And so their total number was 20, so that's why it's shown in the overall, but we don't know if it's like 10-10, 11-9. We don't know what the breakdown is because it's less than 20, so it doesn't tell us the rate. Again, the highest rate is in Palo Pinto County for alcohol overdose deaths. And then for drug overdose deaths, 9 counties had a higher rate than Texas overall. Cook and Palo Pinto County are the top 2 rates for that. And again, Somerville County is suppressed. Okay. So 4 counties had higher rates of suicide than Texas overall. So we only have 8 counties shown here. 6 counties actually reported 0 suicides for 2019. And then we have 5 counties that have suppressed data. And this is for all ages and it's crude rates specifically. So you'll see that Grayson County has the highest rate at 21 per 100,000, followed by Parker and then Ellis. And then, like I said, 5 counties had a suppressed data because their numerator was less than 20. Okay, so what are some things that stood out to y'all in this section in focus? So in this section, we talk about some community resources and some spotlights. So the first thing is our map. So I went through and I put a little circle for all the YP programs, so youth prevention programs, and then I put a triangle for all of the community coalition partnerships that were funded by the state. So this is not a all-inclusive. This is just from the list we got from the state. And this is for 2021. So we had 17 YP programs and 11 CCPs. So the icons represent the number of agencies or coalitions that provide a program in the county. So there could be programs that service multiple counties. So if someone has a grant for Parker and Palo Pinto, I put a dot in Parker and in Palo Pinto. So that means in Palo Pinto, for example, there are up to 2 YP programs that service that area. And this also takes into account the different curricula that YP utilize. And then community coalitions are also indicated. So you can see where the distribution is just by looking. So you see if there's a lot in Tarrant County, as well as Dallas. And then we have Johnson and Ellis as well. So the coalitions are kind of, in the middle. And then whereas there's not as much distribution with the coalitions as there are with the YP programs. And then we have a couple of counties that don't have any services. So Cook and Fannin County do not have YP programs or coalitions that are funded by the state. So the Center for Children's Health, this is through Cook Children's. They have, so I usually show their CHAPS data that they always give. So they just did a new CHAPS last year in 2021. So I didn't include it in the presentation because I have to go through and make a nice graph and dig through all the data, which I'm excited to get through. So they have 12 community initiatives, and they have 2 at the very bottom that are co-founded with other organizations. And they now service 8 counties. It used to be 6. They added Collin and Grayson County. And then they have actual medical centers in Denton and Tarrant County. And so these are the different programs that they have. There's a list of them in the RNA. So Region 3 has 7 local health, mental health authorities, which service 19 counties. So there are some like life path systems in Collin County, which only service Collin County. And then you have some in, like NITBA, which service a few counties. And then you have some like the Pecan Valley one, which services not just counties in Region 3, but counties in other regions as well. And so this is, and again, this chart is in the RNA. So like if you're ever looking for this number, the numbers and stuff, that's in there as well. So there are 4 recovery high schools in Region 3. So recovery high schools are accredited by ARS, which is the Association for Recovery Schools. So it's students who go through substance abuse treatment, sometimes don't want to return back to their school environment they were in prior to going to treatment for myriad of reasons. And so Serenity High School, which is in Collin County, is one option for them. And then Winfrey Academy, they have 3 different schools throughout Dallas County and 1 in Tarrant County. They have 2 in Dallas County and 1 in Tarrant County for students to attend and complete their high school education. And then at the collegiate level, there are 5 universities that have an accredited collegiate recovery program. So 2 of them are in Dallas. So you see SMU and then UTD. And then 2 of them are in Tarrant County. So TCU and then UTA. And then UNT in Denton has a program as well. So these programs range from having like direct services, like counselors on staff and things like that, or having support groups. And then some of them have whole departments. So UNT has an entire department dedicated to this. And all of this, the details can be found in the RNA as well. Notice I keep referring back to the RNA, just putting that out there. Okay. And then the last data piece that I will share with you. So when they were asked who they would go to if they had a drug problem and needed help, about 80% of students said that they wouldn't seek help. So earlier, June talked about how reporting that they do have a problem is better, right? Now that we know that they're understanding that, you know, what the symptoms are, what the signs are, and they can recognize that within themselves. That doesn't necessarily mean that they are willing to seek that help or that they even know who to seek help from. So they were asked who they would seek help from this list of like, you know, parents, friends, et cetera. And majority of them said that they wouldn't seek help. So only about 18% of students said that they would seek help. And they were asked to like check all that apply basically. So parents were the number one for the ones who said they would seek help, about 69%. And then 65% was friends. And so this is why we talk about family domain and the peer domain being very important, right? So we talked about parents being the first line of defense. And, you know, friends are the people that they're around a lot. And so that's the person that they may talk to. And this was something that even when I was doing focus groups in schools, this is something that I heard. I would say to them, like, you know, if you had a problem, do you have someone you can talk to? And who would that person be? And students were saying like, well, I would talk to my friends because I'm with them a lot. And like, they wouldn't judge me or project their own experiences onto me. And I was like, who projects their experience? And they're like, well, our parents would be like, well, when I was your age, blah, 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 blah. And so a lot of them did say that they would talk to their friends. And again, I was talking to high school students. And so that's different than, you know, maybe a 7th grader who would say, maybe I will still talk to my parents, or maybe even an 8th grader, 9th grader. And then school nurse was the lowest on the list, so about 24%. Counseling program, another adult was about over half. So 56% of them said they would talk to another adult, maybe not necessarily a parent, maybe a family member, maybe not a family member, but a trusted adult. And so that's something that's also important, right? So see if you can find where you may fit in on this list, like as a person that someone could seek help from to help get with resources and stuff. All right. So I know after all of that, most of you feel like this, which makes sense. I get it. So we are going to take a short break, and then we will come back and talk about some ideas of how we can possibly apply all the data we just gathered. So if you had your